Hi, I'm Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and today we're going to talk about how to find business analyst volunteer positions. And if you are not yet a business analyst or are currently unemployed, often this is the best way to build experience, is to actually volunteer to do business analysis, because we know many roles require a certain amount of experience. How do you build that if you're not yet in a business analyst role? You can feel stuck in a catch-22 or a chicken and egg scenario, and volunteering is often a way to very quickly fill that gap and get you into the business analyst role that you really want and deserve. So there are some really tangible benefits to volunteering, and I wanted to kind of articulate those for you, because it is an investment in yourself and in the organization to do that. So you really want to understand what's in it for you. So the first thing that volunteering can do for you is it can expand the work history section of your resume. So when you volunteer, you get to choose your title, you get to add business analyst with the organization that you're working for in your work history section. This is not something that should be buried at the bottom under volunteer work. It is part of your work history. No one really has to know that it was not paid. It's just as valuable as paid work experience, okay? Because you are in a real world setting, you are doing real business analysis work, you are working with real stakeholders, creating real deliverables. So we don't want to minimize that by putting it at the bottom. You want it at the top in your work history section. And it's a great solution if you have an experience gap or a work history gap, or if you just have never had the business analyst job title and tweaking your job titles doesn't call out that experience, because recruiters do scan your resume and kind of look for the most recent experience and the titles that you've had to make a quick decision about whether or not to interview you. Okay, so that's the first benefit. The second benefit is that you actually build the on-the-job business analyst experience that you can speak to in the interview. So even if you get through that filter, that recruiter or that hiring manager is going to want to talk about your business analyst experience, your experience using the techniques, working in a stakeholder group, and you can talk about that volunteer experience as real-world experience. And third is that kind of experience builds your confidence. So when you engage with stakeholders in an organization and you use new technologies and you dig in and rely more heavily on your business analyst skills that you may have just studied and learned abstractly before, you gain more confidence in your abilities and you actually feel ready to do the job that you want to be hired for. Okay, so that's why. Let's look at how. So the first idea is to look for nonprofit organizations, because it's very likely that the nonprofits that you care about need business analysts. And often they can't afford to hire a business analyst as part of their full-time staff. Nonprofit organizations have business processes, often significant ones, and often their organizations are grown by this variety of grassroots efforts and trying to get people to work together, and so their processes are not well documented or understood. Enter you as the business analyst. So I've seen this happen dozens of times. One course participant went to her local church to find an opportunity, and she found the course as a perfect excuse to get them to give her a business analyst volunteer opportunity. And she analyzed that church's process for recruiting volunteers. She iterated through several hand-drawn models, and she used our business process template to get really, really detailed about what that process was. And by the way, that is available to you absolutely free. There's a link below where you can download our business process template, absolutely free for you to go ahead and get started doing some of this work. And then while reworking her process though, she ended up combining 4 processes into one and simplifying how she and her stakeholders had viewed the process. What a powerful experience to speak to in a job interview. It was very iterative, and that's how things work in the real world. If you're just kind of in a class doing a fictitious case study, you're not going to necessarily go through that heavy lifting of how things really are in the real world, which can be a little bit messy at times. We had another course participant who conducted an elicitation interview with a nonprofit about a fundamental process that had yet to be documented. And then he formalized that information as well into a process model. Now, I want to share a secret behind this person's experience. He interviewed his wife while she was cooking dinner. The nonprofit was a local parent-teacher organization, and the process was how to raise more funds. However, you'll notice by when I talked about that process, I didn't have a lot of those details, right? We didn't have to talk about him interviewing his wife over cooking dinner. We could talk about how he engaged in a conversation with a stakeholder about a fundraising process. Very, very powerful. So I just share that, there's all kinds of experiences, and some very like less rigorous or less formal, like that one, some much more formal and bigger organizations. Just take the lesson that you don't want to underestimate the value of the opportunities that you have to add to your professional credibility. There's almost always a way to do this. So the second idea I have for you is to look for small businesses. Examples, nonprofits are great. Small businesses also are not often in the position to hire a full-time business analyst, but they definitely need our help. One of our course participants volunteered at a local pharmacy, and the owner of that pharmacy happened to be really well connected in her target industry. And so after about 10 hours of pro bono work with that organization, she'd secured a valuable item to add to the work history section of her resume as well. She also gained an employer, an influential stakeholder who was able to vouch for her work and recommend her to other organizations in her local organization or in her local area. And so the process she looked at was to figure out why there were so many errors and issues when they filled prescriptions. And again, 10 hours of pro bono work. She documented the as-is process. She identified the sources of many of those errors. She had a very valuable experience to put on her resume and speak to in interviews. And actually her work was so valued that they asked her to do more. And she respectfully declined because she was looking to transition to paid work. However, again, she got connections in the industry, and a few weeks later, she was able to get an interview for a business analyst role in her area. So my advice to you is really to look at leveraging all of your connections. And again, I see people have resistance, like, I don't have an opportunity, this isn't going to work for me. Really, really get creative. Think of past coworkers, organizations you believe in and support, organizations of which you are a customer, friends and family. And just to kind of get you thinking, I want to share a few other examples of people that we've seen really have success with this strategy. Amelia McHenry volunteered through her husband's company. So it was a very significant sized company. And her husband was in a leadership position within the IT team there. And she analyzed a disaster recovery process for that company. And then again, she also, for other parts of her coursework, she used her husband's side gig as a musician to do her data mapping in terms of how the data for their album shipments mapped together. It was pretty cool. Todd Fleming volunteered for his prior organization that he had been laid off from a few months ago, or few months prior. And that opportunity ended up leading to paying contract work with that same company that had laid him off. Becky Gohl volunteered to help her roommate improve processes for her remote CPA business. And this was right in the middle of the lockdown starting in March of 2020 when the pandemic hit and we were all trying to figure out, how to do things, and opportunities in a way felt like they were shrinking. And she had a roommate who needed help with her CPA business and bringing it remote. And also for Becky, that led to paying contract work for her as well with her roommate. So one of the really important things is that as you approach an organization about volunteering, you might say, do you need a business analyst? And they might say, no, we're good. And that might seem like it's the end of the story. And it's really not. Because a lot of companies out there, a lot of nonprofits out there, they don't understand what the business analyst role is. That means they don't understand what you're offering to them. So instead, you need to ask questions. You need to understand their pay point. You need to describe specifically what a business process can do and what documenting their business processes can do for them so that they will see the value of that work and want to help you. Another idea is to use your coursework and certifications plans as an excuse. And the reality is that people want to help people who are helping themselves. When you mention that you've invested in a course and are required to apply what you are learning as part of receiving a certification. And that's exactly what happens when you invest with us in the Business Analyst Blueprint and go towards applying your ACBA certification or applied certification in business analysis. You will find that people are more receptive to your requests. It's happened time and time again for our course participants because they know that you're serious about your offer because you've made an investment in yourself, right? You're not asking them to take the lead, you are taking the lead. And they also know that you are going to be supported in leveraging on the job learning and have people, instructors that you can go to ask questions and resources to help you do better work. You're not just going to be trying to figure it out on the fly. And we've seen it work for participants like Becky and Todd as well, that when you go in as a volunteer because you are taking a certification or because you are taking a course, it also sets a clear boundary, right? So you're saying this is the boundary of what I will do for free because it's helping me finish my course. And then when they see that and see the value of that and want more of it, then you can say, well, I'm done with the business process module for the course, but I'd love to help you analyze more business processes. Would you be willing to contract me to do that? So that's a natural way to limit the scope of your volunteer work and create an opportunity that's still a win-win for both of you. Now, there's one more thing I want to encourage you not to do. It can be really tempting to wait for the perfect position instead of jumping into a good enough role and creating a business analyst role out of that opportunity. Just like most BA professionals have kind of morphed their way into business analyst positions, the volunteer position market is really similar. Have an open mind and a drive to apply the business analyst fundamentals, and you will open up opportunities for yourself. But first, you have to get started. You have to ask, you have to be creative and look for the opportunities. So if you want to learn more, first you can download that free business process template, and I would highly suggest you do that. It is linked right below this video, and it will give you the tool of what am I actually doing as an output for this organization? What am I going in and requesting? And that's the first module that we teach in the Business Analyst Blueprint. It's the most logical place to start with just about any kind of organization, is documenting an as-is process and looking for some improvements to that. So let me know how that goes. Leave me a comment below and let me know who you're reaching out to, what kind of process you're thinking about documenting, what organizations, what ideas you have, what ways that you have volunteered to build your experience, and what that has meant for you in your career. Again, I'm Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap. We help business analysts start and succeed in their business analyst careers. We build our profession one business analyst at a time, and success starts with you.